Hey guys, Wowguy233 here, and today I'm going to be bringing you part 3 of my Protection Warrior Guide for World of Warcraft. In this section of the guide, we will be discussing the different stats a Protection Warrior should strive to maximize, the stat hierarchy, the consumables you should try and eat before a boss, the gems you should socket into your gear, and the enchantments you should use on your gear. Now, this guide was designed assuming you already know how to play the basic warrior without any specializations, which means that you should already know that the two basic stats you want on any piece of gear are strength and stamina. But other than those two stats, there are other stats you'll need as well. The importance of those stats has a very obvious hierarchy the more you examine them. The stat hierarchy is as follows: bonus armor at the top, which you need the most, then mastery, then critical strike, then versatility, then haste, and on the bottom is multistrike, which you need the least. Now, let's look at each of these stats a bit more in depth to understand exactly why we need or don't need them. Bonus armor is the stat that you want the most, and it's at the top because it adds extra damage reduction on top of the armor that you already have. Bonus armor also works with bladed armor to increase attack power, which many of your abilities and procs feed off of. Bonus armor's primary function, however, is to increase your armor, which therefore reduces the amount of damage that you ultimately take. Bonus armor also helps with better damage mitigation. With all of that being said, bonus armor is the number one stat you want to try and maximize if at all possible. The next stat we will look at is mastery. Mastery is on the same level of importance as bonus armor, except it works with your blocks and critical blocks in order to reduce the damage you take. It also increases your attack power the more mastery you have. For these reasons, mastery is the second most important stat that we want to try to maximize. Critical strike is useful to have mainly because of riposte, which dictates that you gain parry equal to 100% of the critical strike rating from your gear. Critical strike is also useful because it can increase the chance for the abilities you use frequently in your rotation to be critical, which enrages you and generates more rage. For these reasons, critical strike is the third most important stat that we want to try to maximize. Next, we will be looking at versatility, which is fourth in the stat hierarchy and increases your absorption and mitigation of your shield barrier ability. On top of that, it increases the damage you deal the more versatility you have, which is never a bad thing. For these reasons, versatility is the fourth most important stat we want to try and maximize. Lastly, we are going to be looking at both haste and multistrike, which are about the same as far as usefulness, which isn't much in regards to a protection warrior. However, haste is slightly more useful than multistrike because it reduces the length of all cooldowns on all abilities, but not that much. This makes haste fifth on our stat hierarchy. Multistrike is most useful when it procs Blood Craze, which is a self-healing passive proc for 3% of your health over 3 seconds. For these reasons, Multistrike is dead last at 6th on our stat hierarchy. Neither of these last two stats are something you really want to strive to maximize as a protection warrior, but they do have their occasional uses. But those occasional uses don't make haste or multistrike something you want to focus on in regards to protection warrior tanking. With all of this being said and the stat hierarchy established and analyzed, let's move on to consumables. As far as flasks, you should always try and drink stamina flasks whenever possible because you'll want to have more health to face bosses with and give yourself a much larger health pool, which provides a larger safety net for your healers. As far as food, you'll want to follow the hierarchy and try and eat something that will provide a food buff for mastery, then critical strike, then versatility. Notice that I excluded bonus armor from that list because bonus armor is something that currently cannot be buffed by food items. Bonus armor can, however, be buffed by a potion in the middle of battle, that potion being either Drainic Armor Potion or Commander's Drainic Armor Potion. They both do the same thing. That thing being increasing your bonus armor by 1,500 for 25 seconds. You can usually buy the Drainic Armor Potion off the auction house or just craft it if you're an alchemist and have learned the recipe for it. The Commander's Drainic Armor Potion is one of the potions you can choose as a reward when you complete the daily quest given to you by your garrison's level 2 or 3 alchemy building follower. These potions have many different scenarios in which using them will determine whether you live or die. However, they should be used wisely as you can only use one potion per combat encounter. Next, I want to talk about gems. This is another thing you'll want to follow the stat hierarchy for. Provided that you actually get an item with a gem socket, you'll want to socket mastery gems in most, if not all, sockets. This includes, but is not limited to, Greater Mastery Talidite, Mastery Talidite, and Immaculate Mastery Talidite. If you can't afford any of those, then look for Critical Strike gems on your server's auction house if they're cheaper than Mastery gems. For enchantments, your priority should be on Mastery rating, then Critical Strike, then Versatility. I would say try to enchant bonus armor, but there isn't currently an enchantment for that. If you want to have another stat like Critical Strike on any item that can be enchanted, I'd recommend doing it with your back item, which is your cloak. However, the main focus of your enchantments should be centered around the stat hierarchy I presented you with earlier in this video. Lastly, I want to briefly cover the bonus stats that you can randomly get on gear. Since this is random, you can't really be picky, but if you're shopping on the auction house and are wondering what would benefit you the most, I recommend Avoidance, then Leech, then Speed. Avoidance because it reduces all AoE damage you take the more avoidance you have, which is useful in any scenario. Leech because it returns a small percentage of the damage you deal back to yourself as healing. So it's basically free health, which is always useful. And Speed because it increases your character's movement speed a small amount the more speed you have. And increased mobility for Protection Warrior is always a good thing. So I hope you guys learned something about the stat priority a Protection Warrior should be aware of when looking for gear, the various stats you should be aware of and how they can help you, and the consumables, gems, and enchantments you should use in order to maximize your tanking potential. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe, rate, and comment, and I will see you next time. After this, we begin to use our rage generation abilities. The order for this is Revenge, then Shield Slam. The reason for this is because parrying, which we do frequently because we're a tank, resets the cooldown of Revenge